What I've enjoyed lately quite a lot, because I do this much more now, the strategic and kind of operational part, and also the coaching and the mentoring. So I get to coach and mentor some of the new hires in my team. That's something I absolutely enjoy. As I said, I am a football coach in my free time, so it's something I absolutely enjoy doing.
Now, let's say you meet a company, you are going to train their sales team, and you want to train them on the sales cycle. You want to give them a strategy on what to do in this cycle from when a client comes to the company to when the deal is made and the money is in the bank. What is the strategy you want to recommend to them?
Usually, you're gonna get them to open and tell you the story they want to kind of tell you, and then based on the commonalities, right? If you've done something similar, you've traveled maybe to the same places, you speak the same languages, you support the same football team, you like the same sport. It could be 10,000 different types of topics. You find a common topic where you kind of like exchange information, and then immediately that bridge and that communication between you and that potential customer, whatever the case might be, is a completely different level, right? You're now able to speak to each other. You're now able to connect on a different level. Well, I'm Risto. I'm myself Macedonian, currently in Berlin, working in the SaaS industry, in the sales industry for the last 8 years, specialized in B2B sales. I personally write a blog myself about history, and then also about sales and business, of course. I also am someone who's very interested in football. I coach kids football as well. Currently under 18s. I used to coach kids under 12s. So I would say I have a variety of topics I'm interested in and involved in. Sales being one of the prime ones, obviously, because that's my profession. The rest of them basically being my hobbies and something I like to do in my free time, so to say.
All right, that's lovely. So you are originally from Estonia?
No, Macedonia.
Macedonia. Okay. So tell me a bit about the journey, because here we are entirely about storytelling. We love to talk about ourselves, our story, where we are coming from, what we have encountered. So tell me about you from Macedonia to Berlin.
Well, that's quite a crazy story, I would say. It started back in 2009 when I was still in Macedonia. I completed my studies in my bachelor's in English and French back in the day. And I decided to leave Macedonia at that time. And since that time, I've always kind of been traveling around the world. So I went to the States to work to kind of secure the funds that I needed to do my master's degree. Spent 3 years in the US working for Royal Caribbean, basically a large cruise company, which entitles quite a lot of traveling. So I've been traveling around the world for 3 years from 2009 to 2012. Quite a lot of that. Very much enjoyed it. Was a really good career move as well, because I ended up being assistant front desk manager in one of the largest cruise ships in the world back in the day, Allure of the Seas. Had the chance to travel pretty much on most continents. Last continent remaining for me is Africa. Hopefully I get to visit it one day. And then in 2012, I finally decided to go back to what I actually set out to do, my master studies. So with enough money in a life experience, I went back to Bonn here in Germany, and I did my master's in politics because I wanted to be actively involved, obviously, in diplomacy. That was my goal, with all of the languages that I do speak and basically the interest in politics that I have. I thought it was a very good choice of career. I completed my master studies 2013 and got a very interesting offer to do an internship in the European Parliament. So I had the chance to go and live in Brussels and work for the European Parliament for a brief while. And then after the elections back in 2014, I actually switched to the so to say, NGO sector. And I worked for an organization called Women in Parliaments as a project manager. It's basically an organization that works on fostering more and encouraging women to participate more actively in obviously in politics. Back in the day, I was taking care of basically the projects that were concerning the European Parliament and the European Commission, generally the European bodies. So that was what I did for almost 2 years, and then in 2016, mainly due to like visa issues back in the day, and the fact that Macedonia is not part of the EU, so it was really hard to remain and work there permanently. I moved back to Germany where I did my master's.
Tell me a bit, how did you get solidified in sales? Because now you have background in another area, but now you are mostly focused on sales. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm mostly focused on sales. In the last 8 years, that's been my profession. That's been my kind of main source of income as well. I started back in the day at a company called Otinium, and then I actually ended up being a team lead there in the area of sales. I kind of found myself very quickly in the area, I would say. Someone who actually did customer service in the United States and then went to politics. It's always been one of my main fortes or strengths to be able to communicate with people and speak to people. And I think sales comes down to the fact that you have to actively listen to your customer, what they need, why they want to buy your product, what they need to get out of you, regardless if it's a service or a product, and kind of being able to respond back to what they've told you because you've understood what their needs are. And it largely, for me at least, in sales, you have to have the personality to be able to handle these difficult types of situation, negotiations, and just managing the entire sales cycle. And I very easily adopted, to be honest, and I've stayed there because I actually enjoyed quite a lot, especially the communication with people, especially communicating and kind of going into conversations with people you don't really know, but getting to know them, building that relationship, finding something in common, and then based on that relationship actually bringing an entire process to a close. And sometimes that can be really complicated, months-long negotiations, sometimes really short, week or two, but it's very enjoyable because and I think you mentioned a little bit of that, everybody has their own story, right? Everybody wants to tell their story. So for people who are interested in listening and understanding the story and the background of the people you're communicating with, it will be easy to complete a deal. So I found myself enjoying it very much, and I think I will stay in the industry for a longer period of time. I don't see myself changing moving forward.
That's lovely. That's so lovely, Risto. Now, you like to remain there for a long time. All right. Let's put it like this. What do you really love about sales?
Well, a couple of things actually. As I mentioned previously, obviously the communication and having to speak to people on a regular basis. Most of the times, people you don't really know, so you kind of build up new relationship from the start. The thrill of the win, I would say, closing the deals as well. Just being able to come to the end of the quarter, you have all your targets done, you have closed major deals. It has had an impact in the organization you're working on, so you can actually see, you are really helping and changing situations. What I've enjoyed lately quite a lot, because I do this much more now, the strategic and kind of operational part, and also the coaching and the mentoring. So I get to coach and mentor some of the new hires in my team. That's something I absolutely enjoy. As I said, I am a football coach in my free time, so it's something I absolutely enjoy doing. But it's also kind of the securing of long-term relationship with clients. In my experience, once you've really made the connection between yourself and the client or the potential client, much easier to close the deals afterwards. So it's a bit of a journey, but it's a very enjoyable journey for me.
All right. The connection, that is very important for me now, because we talk a lot about storytelling, we tend to sort of encourage people to use storytelling to be able to create a connection before they can then go for the sales. So, of course, we are on the side of the storytelling. You are a sales expert. Could you tell me how do you make that connection, and what role might storytelling play in that process?
I think the most important part is, if you want to basically understand someone, or you want to build a connection to them, regardless if it's a potential customer, it's a customer. What you need to do is basically understand their story. I usually go to LinkedIn before any meeting that I have, just to see some interesting facts about the people I'm about to speak to, because everybody has their own story that they want to tell. Right? Some people really want to talk about their family. Somebody really wants to talk about their hobby. Somebody really wants to talk about journeys they've taken. So if you ask the right type and set of questions, usually you're going to get them to open and tell you the story they want to kind of tell you. And then based on the commonalities, right? If you've done something similar, you've traveled maybe to the same places, you speak the same languages, you support the same football team, you like the same sport. It could be 10,000 different types of topics. You find a common topic where you kind of like exchange information, and then immediately that bridge and that communication between you and that potential customer, whatever the case might be, is a completely different level, right? You're now able to speak to each other. You're now able to connect on a different level. And it's relationship that closes deals at the end of the day, right? How much does the party on the other end trust you? And how much do they think they can get out of you, or how much do they think they can get from the relationship with you? At the end of the day, right? If you're a customer and you're buying something, you need to have the trust that the person who's selling to you is someone who's trustworthy and has the best interest, your best interest in heart. And also, why do you want to buy it, right? If it's a product that actually solves an issue for you. So once you combine the both, it's almost a guaranteed deal.
All right. Now, from your experience, um, is there a reason why people might not trust you if they don't understand who you are? I mean, are there reasons why we need to first of all do this preliminary part where you need to sort of talk to a person, you know who the person is. Now, when you begin to sort of talk with each other, they know who you are. Then before they can trust you, are there some inherent reason in our common behavior? Because there is no way we can take away psychology now from sales. Anyway, I'm still coming there. Yeah, please share with me.
I think that's a great question. Actually, that's probably one of the best points to make. Like inherently, humans are trusting to each other, right? Society cannot function without trust. Let's take money, for example, right? You have a 50 euro bill. It's actually just a piece of paper. If you don't trust each other that that's the value of the actual bill, we're just passing each other a standard piece of paper that has literally no meaning. So it is us who give meaning to an object, to trust, to basically whatever we do, right? And if you're going to be in a long-term, short-term relationship with someone, regardless if it's a business one or a personal one, private one, whatever the case might be, professional one, you need to trust each other, right? And then that storytelling that comes at the very start of the conversation is the important part, because if people do not find themselves belonging to the same group as you, and that group is really a wide definition, right? It could be anything. As I said, favorite football team, I don't know, religion, having kids, being married, being single. It could really be a topic that, it's almost never certain which one it will be. But if you find that commonality that you have, people can relate to you much more. And then that trust is being built step by step, right? Once you achieve the trust that whatever I have said will actually be done, you are much more inclined to sign the deal, right? And I think this comes also different in very different cultures. Like in Germany, for example, you always have the written contract, which is like your ultimate confirmation. Hey, here, I trust you. Everything that you've said is now put in written. I think like in my culture in Macedonia, and I assume similar in Africa, you have more written verbal communication where we kind of promise each other something, but we deliver on it. So it's to us almost as a contract, right? That's really dependent on a culture. But I think every single person has certain values that they kind of take for granted, that they associate with trust, right? And if you fulfill those, you're more than guaranteed to be having a good relationship with someone and then to get a deal done. um, and that's why this part of like getting to know each other, telling your story, listening to the story, and understanding where people are coming from is super important in able to like to complete a deal or to work successfully in sales.
Now, somebody is getting into sales. Okay, now you do training for people, so you perfectly understand this. Now, this individual is interested in sales but have no knowledge about sales. Where do you recommend that he or she starts from?
I think the main ingredient that you have to start from is, are you actually motivated to do it? I've trained people who were extremely junior, have never had any experience in sales, and they thought, I really can't sell. It's not, it's not my forte. I'm not really good in communicating with people, hence why I can't really do it. But it has nothing to do with reality. If you're motivated, and in generally, most people are very, very intelligent, and they can learn very easy, to kind of go to according to a certain script, and say what they need to say and present what they need to present. But that's why motivation sets you apart as a successful or unsuccessful person in sales, and someone who can actually do it or not do it. Because if you're motivated and you want to do it, you will learn very fast, you will adjust very fast, and you will pick up techniques along the lines, along the deals and along the situations that you're in, where you can learn how to, again, time back to the storytelling, how to tell your story so that the customer actually says, oh, okay, actually this is a really good product, this is a really good service, and I would like to buy it. I think you have to come always from a genuine place. I don't think that sales is something you should lie about. I don't agree with that premise of certain salespeople. There is nothing to lie. I think the most important part is, do you understand the person opposite to you, your customer, your potential customer? What do they want? What do they need? And then how can you give them what they need and what they want, in a realistic, obviously, and doable way, not in a we can do this and never actually do it. And I think I've seen it a lot in people who are junior but have the motivation. They soak up so much information so quickly, and they form their style and they can do it everything. And I've seen the opposite in people who are experienced, but they're set in their ways, and they're like, I've done this my way and I will always do it my way, and I'm not interested in any type of feedback. And this is where usually you fail. So mentality is everything. In sales specifically, it's everything. It is something that does require certain talent, in the sense of like, are you able to express yourself? How are you able to express yourself? How quickly are you able to adjust your conversational skills to the person opposite to you, right? Because not everybody communicates in the same way. um, but in general, it's something that can be easily learned. And I think a lot of people who were in that situation surprised themselves by the fact how quickly they adjusted and how quickly they learned, even though they thought they didn't have sales skills.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Because yeah, most of us are not really good salespeople, but we need to learn it because these are skills that are learnable. Of course, that led me to another question that I was having in mind as you were explaining, because there are a lot of businesses there that haven't taken the time to learn about sales. You will hear the same people, the same business owner complain or not able to make sales. But now, because you haven't sowed the seed, it's almost natural that you're not going to reap because you don't know how to sell, so you cannot sell, no? So you're not going to make sales because you don't know how to really get involved in the sales process. So I want to put a question to you like this. Why do you think businesses need to learn about sales? Why is it important for them?
That is a fantastic question. I actually love that. That's absolutely great. And the reason for that is that I think organizations start from the point, we have an amazing product, right? Um, and they forget the storytelling. And I'll tell you very honestly, nobody cares if you have an amazing product. What is it going to help me with, right? You can come and bring me a piece, like a pen right now. Let's say I have a pen next to me, and you can say, hey, here's a pen, buy it. It's the most amazing pen that you've ever had in your life, right? But if I'm not going to use the pen, I'm not going to buy it. Also, there is no, let's say, pain, right? Now modern SaaS sales specifically always kind of goes to the fact you need to implicate the pain. It's not always the pain, but it's the need, right? Do I need it? Is it a luxury, or is it a commodity, or is it something I absolutely need? So if an organization doesn't understand why the customers want to buy the product or why do they need it, they're doomed not to be good in sales. They need to adjust their storytelling about their product to the audience that they want to sell. So the audience needs to understand the story. They need to understand why they need it. I might be prone to buy this pen, like I might be kind of pushed towards buying the pen if I like the story. Maybe it's a pen that's made somewhere in the world by someone manually, like it takes hours to make it. It's a very special pen that uses some very crazy ink that remains, shows up when it dries out, or whatever the case might be, right? But if there's a story behind it, even if it's a luxury, I'm more open to buy it because I like the product and I connect with the product on a certain level. But if I don't, and that's, I think, a very good example about storytelling is probably Apple, right? People don't really need iPhones. You can use a much cheaper phone than iPhone. But the way Apple does the storytelling about every single of their product is usually what kind of builds this loyal crowd of people who would go and purchase their product, regardless of if it is more expensive than the same product in the same category with better characteristics rather than the iPhone. And it's the same commonality to every successful sales organization. First of all, what's your story? What's your background? Why would people need it? And why do they absolutely have to have it? And how does that help them to have it? Like, what benefits does it bring them to have? Obviously, there's differences if you're selling a product, if you're selling a service, but in general, once you clarify that and once you clearly set your story, you clearly deliver your story, the crowd or the potential customers are more than open to buy it. So it's all about communicating it, right? How do you communicate it to your potential buyers? And how do they understand you? And once you actually do that in a very successful way, I think your sales as an organization will soar, because you've connected with your crowd. You know who your crowd is, because you can't sell the same product to everyone. Let's face it. Simply not possible. But you need to identify your crowd. You need to identify the story you want to tell them based on the needs of that crowd, not on your own needs or not how awesome your product is. Nobody cares, because there's probably as 5 other awesome products as yours on the market, and some of them might be even cheaper. So you need to convince me, the buyer, why I would buy your product, right? And that goes down again to what we have as, I guess, main topic to the discussion, right? Storytelling, and how do you do it successfully, and how do you connect it to your organization, to your people, to your product.
Thank you so much for that. I really see you to be a very good candidate for the conversation today, because you have worked in politics. There is a lot of storytelling being done in politics, because you are shaping the perception of the people. You are telling the people why they need to vote for this particular party instead of the other one, because we have a better approach to governing this country and all of that. Then you have worked also with the NGO. That to have leverage a lot of story to be able to carry on what they are doing, because now you have a mission that you are going to execute. You need people to support that mission, and you are just in sales in the business sense of it. I think you are really a very good candidate for this conversation. So you have a good background around you from all angles. Now, you were talking of need before, and I think that is really very important. But this is my curiosity. How do we really come to that need when we are selling? Is it the need that the people know that they have, or the need the people have but they don't know that they have? So you, as a salesperson or as a business person who is offering a solution, help them understand that they have this problem that need your solution, or they already know that they have the problem, and therefore they are be looking around for solutions, so they suddenly find you. So when you just talk to them, it becomes easier. So you just go and do the sales. So I don't know if you could say something in line with that.
I think I have several answers to that question, because I think you were talking about politics and storytelling, and then you went to sales. But both of the questions were actually very relevant. So I'll start back from the politics side, right? Not only politics, kids learn the most and best from storytelling. Our entire childhood, our entire history is basically just storytelling. We're telling each other a story. From a political point of view, a nation is nothing more than a story we all agreed to, right? Basically, I'm Macedonian because we all agree that this is our actual history. This is the story that we guide ourselves on, and this is how we perceive ourselves. So, storytelling is ingrained in literally every single aspect of our life. And that's why it's so important in sales as well, because in order to be able to have a successful product, you need to have a story that actually backs that product. Now, when we go to this purely need versus understanding you have a need versus not understanding that you have a need, or not knowing that you have a need, that is what a successful salesman will actually make clear to the customer. So ideally, it's much easier to sell to a customer that already knows that has the needs, because you don't have to convince them, right? They understand they have the issue. They understand that that issue or problem is causing them loss of money, time, revenue, resources, whatever the case might be. So you just need to tell them, hey, if you buy this product, then you save time, budget, resources, and that's a fairly straightforward sales, I would say, right? And there you kind of like almost have the deal half closed, because the customer really understands it. It's really the commercials, kind of like where do you meet them in budget? How do you convince them to pay more, if you want them to pay more, obviously, because they will be looking for a return of investment, right? Because everybody buys something because they expect to get something out of it, right? If you buy a bottle of water, you actually expect that you will quench your thirst, right? So that's your need, that's your solution. When customer doesn't actually know, or a potential customer doesn't actually know that they have a problem, that's basically a cold acquisition part, right? Then in that case, you need to speak to them in a way, or present to them a story that tells them, hey, this is an issue that I've experienced as your potential customer. This is why I didn't buy your product, but this is how I can help you solve that problem, so the next customer who comes does not experience that same problem. Let me think of an example where that would be relevant, that I think would be helpful. Let's say you have a shop open, right, on Google, and it says that the shop is open at 6 p.m., right? And then I come to the shop because I Googled it and it's open at 6 p.m., but the shop is actually closed, right? Because you closed at 5 p.m. And I sell this type of software, so that's why I'm using this type of a reference. You've just lost a potential customer, because I came to buy, I thought you were there, I had an intent to purchase something, but your shop wasn't closed. So if I'm speaking to you and you are the one who owns the shop over here, I will tell you, look, you actually lost customers. Why would you lose customers? Let's say an average basket size, or average product that I can buy from you is 200 euros, right? So for every customer you lose who doesn't come into your shop before 5 p.m., you're basically losing 200 euros. So let's assume you lose 10 people per day, right? That is a lot of money for you to lose on a daily basis. So does this create a need for you at the moment, right? It creates a need that you need to solve. You're like, how do I capture those 10 remaining people that might come to my shop? And how do I ensure they know that I'm not open at that time? So this is where I would come and say, look, this is our software. This will help you inform your customers when you're open, and make sure that this does not happen. Better that they come tomorrow during opening hours, where you can speak to them, you can sell them the product, and you can implicate their pain, basically, or I'm implicating your pain by this. So this is basically the process, right? This is how you inform the customer. In generally in organizations, and B2B and B2C, there is a difference, right? If you're selling to a customer individually, obviously most of these things will not be relevant, but in a B2B sales, this will be extremely relevant. So you're speaking to organization, you're telling them, hey, you're losing millions because you're not doing this, and this prompts and this goes down to human psychology, right? There's a bigger fear of losing or missing out on something than the fear of actually missing out on a potential award if it happens in the future. But if I say to you, look, Obehi, you're losing 2,000 euros a day because you're not doing this, your immediate reaction will be, what do I do to stop this? Whereas if I'm speaking hypothetically of potential customers you might gain by doing something, you're less and less convinced that that will be the case, because you're like, yeah, that could happen, but it might not happen. So then you're not that much under pressure to do something about it, right? Whereas if I implicate your pain, or I show that you really, really have this need, and if you go leave it unsolved, it will become worse. Your impetus to react is much, much bigger.
Now, before you were making mention of sales cycle. Now, of course, we are talking directly to the business owner because they are the one that are concerned about the sales cycle. No? And also because you say you are dealing with B2B businesses often or more, or maybe only. So, what do you mean by sales cycle? Could you please explain that a bit for those who do not understand what that means?
A sales cycle is basically the time from when you generate or get a lead to the time that you close an actual sale, right? And in B2B sales, then B2C sales, that's obviously different. I'll focus on B2B, obviously. And that's, let's say you've used an SDR to create, or you've used your marketing department to create the lead. And then it took several months of demos, negotiations, discussions to finally come to a closed deal when a potential customer now becomes your customer. And that, depending of the size of the company, the departments that are involved, it could be very long and it could be very short. The smaller the complexity of the deals and the complexity of stakeholders involved, the smaller that process. The larger the complexity and requirements, obviously the product changes that as well. The longer that sales process is. But in SaaS specifically, that sales process can last several months. And I think in average, it's like 2 to 3 to up to 6 months to complete that entire deal, right? Doing every single step along the way, making sure that everything that is going to be eventually signed is aligned, arranging all the little details, quite literally everything that has to do with the entire sales process. That's structured a little bit different from company to company and from product to product or service to a service, because obviously you always have different types of situations. You have leaner and agile companies that can take decisions much quicker, and they don't have to go through procurement or legal. But you are instances, right, which complicate the deal further, and there's less stakeholders involved. But for larger size deals, obviously it's going to be a complicated process, and you need to basically educate and train your team to make sure that they understand how they can speed up the process, and they prepare themselves for a situation where there will be objections, issues, negotiations that could last months. So if you are well prepared, that process will last much shorter. If you're not, obviously it could expand. And then that's, I think, the job of a head of sales role, that to understand where does the pipeline break, or where does the sales process break, and what can you do as a sales leader to make sure that that doesn't happen. And not lose a customer that you've potentially secured because you just didn't do your homework.
All right, Risto, let me present the situation to you. Now, you are both a sales expert and also a coach. You coach people on how to become better sales individual or sales personnel. Now, let's say you meet a company, you are going to train their sales team, and you want to train them on the sales cycle. You want to give them a strategy on what to do in this cycle from when a client comes to the company to when the deal is made and the money is in the bank. What is the strategy you want to recommend to them?
I think it fits our conversation a little bit. what I focus mostly on is when I train someone, when I coach someone, is on the storytelling, right? My first trainings that I do with them is I tell them how I pitch. I show them how I pitch. I tell them this is what I do. This is how I connect it to my story. This is why I tell this to a customer. This is how it will help a customer, or this is what is intended by the product to do to help the customer. And then I insist on the fact that they create their own story of how they're going to speak to the customer, how are they going to tell the customer why he needs that product, and how are they going to bring the customer to the point where they're going to sign. The reason I do that is everybody is an individual, right? And the way I tell my story and the way I pitch does not translate to somebody else, because we don't all think alike, thanks God. We don't all speak alike. We don't all tell stories alike, right? So I want to do usually quite a lot of meetings with my team, where they each show or they each answer a question of how they pitched something or how they answered an objection of a client, because it allows the rest of the team to formulate their own response to a question, to an objection, or an issue that the customer has. And once they have that weapon in their arsenal, it's very easy for them to go and to speak to a customer, because they're already prepared. They're telling the customer the story that will resonate with them, and it will make the customer's decision easy. But it has to be something that comes from their own understanding. Because if somebody repeats my story and my pitch, it's not going to sound convincing at all, because that's not the way they speak, that's not the way they express themselves, and that's not the way they think. So I want the entire sales process to make sense in their head, the entire sales pitch to make sense in their head, because they formulated it. And I want them to be independent in how they resolve the situations. It has to do a little bit with what I do in training with football, right? You have a general tactic and you have a general understanding of how you want your team to play. The team also understands the rules, understands the tactics, understands the formation, and understands what it needs to do. However, just like in football, in sales, you have quite a lot of small decisions that you need to take individually that set the course of the match, right? And that's where I want my team to be independent and to be able to think. And that's why, in football, you have players who are great because they can think very quickly and they can take solutions very quickly. And then that's why you have in sales also, sales geniuses, in the sense they're able to find a solution. They listen to the customer. They understand what the need is. Solution pops up in their head. They suggest that, boom, it's solved. So I want everybody who plays on my team, regardless if it's football or sales, to be able to take quick decisions based, first of all, on experience, second on understanding, and third on the fact that they've been trained and they know how to react in those situations. And that's the most important part. And I think both in football and in sales, training plays a big role. But at the end of the day, the game or the meeting, it's a completely different thing. There, you really need to be able to do those split-second decisions of where you're going to go with the ball and where you're going to go with the pitch. But once you train someone well and you let them play up to their own strengths, I think it becomes simpler and simpler with time. And they are usually enjoying it as well, right? Which is the most important part. You need to enjoy whatever you do.
Lovely, lovely. That's very important, because if you are not enjoying what you're doing, if you don't like what you're doing, even if you are making a lot of money from it now, well, you're not going to be happy. But if you're not going to be happy in life, what kind of a life is that? So yeah, I agree with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You should always do what you love. That's where you're the most productive as a person, as a salesman, as I don't know, as an athlete, whatever the case might be. And that's where you're most invested, and that's where you progress the most, right? You can make money for a short period of time, but if you're not enjoying the role, eventually you will burn.
All right, now still on this sales cycle, I want you to help me. I want you to share something with me, because some people are not able to do that. Where that is why they need you. Because if every person was able to make their sales, you don't have job. But because there are some businesses that don't know how to do that, that's why they need you. But because you are training people, you are training salespeople, where do you or what can you identify as some of the pitfall? What are some of the challenges that they need to overcome for them to become better salespeople?
Couple of them actually that spring in my mind at the moment. First of all, is not listening. That is the most important one, right? Or in sales, we call this um, listening but not understanding, right? Not listening to understand, but just listening for the sake of listening. Usually, the customer tells you what they want and what they need, but you're so focused on your own storytelling, on your own product, that you don't listen to what the customer actually needs. um, and then you focus on what your strengths are, but the customer doesn't really care what your strengths are. The customer only cares how do they benefit and how does this solve an issue they have, or how does it help them promote their own business and how do they make money. So that's one of the most important things in sales that prevents people who are otherwise excellent in storytelling and excellent in presenting and excellent in doing pitches, not being able to actually close the sale, because they talk about themselves more than they actually care about what the other side is saying. And in most cases, you need to remain silent. You need to let the customer talk and tell you what they need, and then adjust your pitch, your story based on what the customer actually needs, not on what you need. And that's, I think, something that happens to every single one. It has happened to me as well. It was happening to me at the very beginning of my career. It can happen to me still. I'm not saying that it's the end, like I have mastered it perfectly. Sometimes we're all in our own world, and unfortunately, don't remain as focused as we should. um, so that's something that is very, very dangerous. And then the second part of that equation is also making it about yourself, making the sell about me. I'm so amazing, I can do this. This is what I'll get you to do. This is over promising things that eventually will not happen. And not being authentic, I think. Not being authentic is also very important. If you're not communicating, you're not like you are telling a story about a product and you're pitching something, but you don't really believe it. Most salesmen think, oh, nobody's gonna notice, but the clients do notice. Like, if you don't have trust in your own product, if you're not fully convinced your product service works perfectly, you will never be able to translate it. you know People will read through it, and then you end up in a situation where you can't move forward, or you think I've did fantastic. I explained this was an amazing product. How are they not seeing the value? They're not seeing the value because it doesn't match what they are telling you. It matches what you're hearing in your head and what you're telling yourself, but not what actually my counterpart in this particular case is asking or needing from me.
What we are feeling in our head. All right, now that leads us to what I was sort of alluding to sometime in the beginning of the conversation, which is psychology. Because I was saying that maybe it is difficult because I'm not a sales expert, so I'm not the one to give that confirmation. But that we can actually separate psychology from sales. In any case, what do you see to be the role of psychology in sales based on your experience?
I think it's quite a lot of psychology involved. I think it's that's one of the main reasons I usually read quite a lot of psychology books as well, added to sales books, because it helps you kind of understand the dynamics in the conversation, um, and not making a sales about yourself, right? About how you feel or how you don't feel. It's really important to make the customer feel um, you know heard, respected, um, gaining their trust to make sure that they know who they're working with and why would they buy the product or the service from you rather than from somebody else. um, and it's everything down to how good are you in doing that. I'll tell you from my personal experience, 50% of the problems sometimes solve themselves just by listening to the customer. Sometimes they just want to vent. They just want to say it to someone. They just want to talk to someone, and then they're completely fine. And sometimes most of the problems become worse because you just didn't listen to what they were actually saying to you. You just went on with, what you assumed was that they were complaining for when they were actually not complaining on that particular issue. They were subtly trying to tell you um, something completely different. So it is a very hard job to do sometimes, because in certain situations you need to read minds and to be a bit of a psychologist, and I wouldn't say play a mind game, because that's a little bit extreme, but still playing the game in the sense of understanding how can you actually get to this person. And if you don't do that right, you don't have the trust needed to proceed with the conversations, and you're not on the right track to keep a customer or win a customer.
Now, of course, this might be relevant to people that are at the international level, because even you are already international because you are from Macedonia, but you are in Berlin right now. And maybe there are some businesses that are coming from your home country. You want to connect to businesses in your place, or maybe you create a product in Berlin, Germany, and you want to sell it to people in your place. If that is what you are doing, you don't really have much of a challenge. But what if you want to sell it to Italian? Maybe when you want to sell it to German, to French, maybe when you want to sell it to Nigerians, for example, maybe when you want to deal with the Arabs. So when you are dealing with the international client, how much should cultural sensitivity play for us to be able to close sales? Because now we are talking about people telling story to people and making them believe in what we are doing. So yeah, help me with that.
Oh, that's a great question. I think there's quite a lot to say on this. To ignore this, I think, is pure recklessness, obviously, because it makes a huge difference in how you sell to the different nations, different cultures, different markets. I know this firsthand because I've worked in the EMEA market, and I've worked in obviously the US market quite a long time now. So within every single country and market, there is a very big difference of how you approach people and how people understand the sales pitches. So leaving aside completely the administrative legal complications that you have country per country, which are not that small, believe me. Going to the cultural presentation, I think you need to adjust the pitch very, very much to who and which nation you're speaking to. Like, obviously, I'll take Germany as an example. If you are speaking to someone you don't personally know, you need to use the formal you, right, when you're addressing them, until they've actually given you the permission to go to the more informal way of speaking. And just this little thing would be very disrespectful if you do it from the start without asking for permission. It just immediately has a disbalanced relationship, right? I was recently actually reading a very, very nice book. I absolutely love it, on cultural differences. And there was one thing, for example, that kind of still sticks with me. It's the way people understand time, right? In every single business culture, you understand time differently. So you have nations and cultures that understand time as linear. Um, you know, um, and basically, if you say you're going to be there at 7 p.m., you need to be there at 7 p.m. Otherwise, it's disrespectful. And you have nations which are very flexible with time. I'll take Macedonia, but generally most southern countries, I'm assuming it's very similar in Africa. You say you're going to be there at 7, but you're almost never there at 7. Like, it's almost polite to be 15 minutes or 20 minutes late, or it's just like a general window where you're going to be there. Obviously in that culture, that's not considered rude, right? It is considered fairly normal and expected. But if you have a Swiss person or a German person waiting for you 15 minutes, they would not take you seriously, right? They would think, okay, this is not a way to do business. And it goes previously to the point that I made, right? In Germany, you have to have everything signed on paper. If it's not on paper, it's not really legal, right? It's not really kind of admitted to be agreed. Whereas in many cultures, like I'll take Macedonia, for example, and I'm assuming it's fairly southern again, a lot of the deals are actually done on the table, right? And by the table, I mean in a restaurant where people are sitting and they're eating and they're talking to each other, and they've built that trust. And I think the best example culture sticks out. For example, there you need to get drunk which are actual business partners, before they actually trust you, right? So you go out on a night of drinking, you get hammered, and when they see you completely drunk and how you behave there, then will eventually trust you. And you have that across so many cultures, right? So it is really important that you adjust your story to the specific region, because what is, like, take Fanta, for example. Fanta is a drink that it's very much loved in Germany, but it's not maybe that much loved in other countries, because the taste of the nation or the population is not the same. So you're not going to go with the same pitch and commercial everywhere, and you're not going to be pointing out the same things in every single market. You really need to understand cultural sensitivity. And that's mainly why most companies, mine included currently, we all hire local experts, right? People who are native speakers, and people who can basically adjust the sales pitch and present it in the most adequate manner to whoever they're selling. Because how I understand business doesn't mean that the other person that I'm selling to understands the same way. So there is a certain difficulty in storytelling and in cross border selling, right? So you need to be aware of this. But I think throughout the years, and having that experience selling internationally, I've kind of realized and understood all of these like small differences. So I always try to incorporate it whenever I'm training someone. But most people are also kind of acutely aware, that are in sales, that this is the case, that you need to adjust communication. You need to be able to translate things, but not literally, more culturally to the people you're selling, because otherwise you're completely missing the point, right? It goes through them what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say, because it's just not the way they speak, and it's not the way they understand how someone should be treated in a professional environment, right? Again, going back to being late or not being late, or going out for like a crazy night drinking, um, those kind of things maybe sound funny, but they are reality of the matter. Again, we're global, like generalizing, of course. It doesn't need to be that it's in every single case, but these kind of things do play a role.
Thank you so much for that, Risto. I appreciate that. Only for question of time, I would have a lot to ask you, because we did touch about communication, which is also a central piece of sales. Then, of course, we could also have talked about negotiation, because you did make mention of that. And I believe all these are going to be very important, especially when we are looking at the international partnership and all of that. But it's okay. We'll have time to come for it another time. Now, you've spent some time here talking with us now. Could you let the people know how they can benefit from your service, your training, your coaching? Please spend some time there as we are moving towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main important part of how I can help is basically all the experience I've gathered, um, all the experience that I've also learned. I think it allows me to be able to translate a lot of the difficulties that are there selling internationally. Um, the fact that I've actually trained a very diverse team throughout my career helps me kind of being able to speak to several different cultures at once. And usually, what helps me a lot, and it speaks a lot about me, is that I've worked in different companies and been successful in all of those, mainly because of that adaptability and ability to adjust to the working environment, adjust to the cultural challenges, and then also being able to transport that knowledge in a way that's understandable to the organization and to the people who are connected with the organization, mainly the sales team, obviously. But that experience, that rich experience that I have, I think is really, really helpful. Not only because of sales, but also in terms of like what I've done in the past, in terms of like communication, psychology, processes understanding, sales, operations, admins, all of those things. When you put them together, I think speak quite a lot about my ability to just help organizations or individuals to adjust to reality, or to the sales processes, and then be successful, which is the most important part, I think.
Thank you so much, Risto. I appreciate the conversation. Of course, we'll have time to talk about it on another episode. So for now, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We're here. Talk to you.
All right. Have a good time. Bye bye.